Bonnie Jill Laflin is a trailblazer in the NBA. She was the first and only female NBA scout. She's also a best-selling author and an advocate for U.S. veterans and animal welfare. So nice to catch up with Bonnie Jill. Great to see you.
Great to see you again. Thank you so much for having me on this morning.
Yes, you bet. As we were talking off air, I've loved over the years when I used to cover sports and seeing you on Radio Row at Super Bowls. That's when we were able to connect. And so excited today to talk about your passion for what you're doing to give back with your national nonprofit, Hounds, Heroes, and Horses. And you have a really cool mission and concept. It's much needed in the veterans community. Tell us about it.
Yes, ma'am. I actually started it in 2010, and I saw, after going and doing so many USO tours downrange in Afghanistan and Iraq, that these veterans, when they came back, they needed something besides having prescription drugs. And so what I did is I started rescuing dogs from the shelters, which would otherwise be euthanized, and then pair them up with disabled veterans that are struggling with PTSD, TBI, even amputees at therapy and service dogs. And there was such a need for these animals and what they can provide emotionally, no judgment, rewiring the brain, so many different things that these animals can do. And I just saw the difference that these dogs were able to overcome with these veterans, and being able to have these veterans have a new start basically after they came back from the deployment. And it was just, fascinating to see how these veterans would say to me, now I have a connection back with my family. I can do day-to-day tasks like going to the bank or to the, get gas, things that we take for granted that we could just do so seamlessly. And it just made such a huge difference. So continue to do that. And then also expanding my mission as we rescue horses, and we do equine therapy retreats on my ranch in Fort Worth. And again, for any type of disabled veteran, fallen soldiers, children of fallen soldiers, and also first responders.
I love that this nonprofit, it's like you're double dipping, because you're helping the veterans and then you're also helping the animals. So it's a win-win. Something you said that struck me that I would love for you to elaborate on, this research that you've seen with the power of animal therapy. I mean, it's really powerful when you can say, hey, you've got these options to take meds, but there might be a solution. We might be seeing some of that circuitry in the brain positively affected by the presence of animals, therapy dogs.
Exactly. And, we've had veterans that have come to me and they're like on 23 different drugs. And once we pair them up with a dog, they're down to like 2 or 3. And there's something that animals can do therapeutically that drugs and even people and therapy and so forth can't do. And so these dogs have this natural instinct to bond and have this chemistry, and have these veterans release endorphins and just get back on their track and be in sync, like I said, back with their family and just day to day. And it's like a rewiring of the brain that these dogs are able to do. And it's fascinating. I go to Capitol Hill a lot and speak with congressmen and congresswomen about this, and everyone is just on board and sees these stories and what these dogs can accomplish. And like you said, it's like you basically are saving 2 lives. You're saving a dog that would otherwise be euthanized, and then saving a veteran where the suicide rate is extremely high.
You mentioned earlier your 19 USO tours. That's got to have been an incredible experience, all those visits. And what did you take from that? I'm sure that is what has fueled your passion for this particular mission.
Absolutely. Also, military family, but going downrange and seeing what these men and women deal with, especially during a combat zone. And, there were so many instances where I saw them coming back home from a deployment, and the VA, not being able to take care of our veterans like they should. And so for me, it was being able to help them. We do so much downrange when we're there, USO tours, and entertaining and bringing a piece of America to them and breaking up the monotony of the day, and just being able to speak to these young men and women, because a lot of them are very young, and, helping them while they're over there, but just making sure when they come back stateside that they have these resources, because there's a lot of limited resources for our veterans that people forget about. And so for me, it was so important to be able to pay it forward, to take care of our nation's heroes. And that's what we're doing.
That's wonderful. I want to talk a little bit about your professional career. And as we mentioned at the beginning, it's so cool what you've been able to do in terms of breaking barriers and becoming the first female NBA scout in a male-dominated industry. What were some of the challenges? I mentioned earlier, sports reporting years ago. So I feel we're kindred spirits on some of this stuff. Right. But tell me some of the things the best experiences that came from that, and some of the challenges.
Yeah, I'd like to say in the beginning, there was a lot more difficulties and hurdles and challenges. I started in 2000 with the Lakers, was there for 13 seasons under Phil Jackson and Mitch Kupchak, who was our GM. And, I was the only female. So it wasn't like I could go to someone and get mentorship on how to kind of navigate these waters. Luckily, Kobe Bryant, who's a very dear friend of mine, he basically told me to, brush off the haters, just to dial in. And, when people try to prove you wrong, that should be why you want to kind of play with the chip on her shoulder and to let people know, yes, I may be a female, but I'm able to contribute to add value to this team. I know my basketball, I know the triangle offense, and it was really tough times, but at the same time, as it moved on, it's like my credibility and my knowledge, people started to see that. They didn't just see a girl that had covered sports or was a cheerleader for the Cowboys. They started to see more of, what the in-depth knowledge that I have for the game and what I could do and provide. And we ended up winning 5 championships. And, like I said, it was very a time where I could really build upon, because it was some tough nights, the tears where you just want to give up because of the fact that you're, kind of outed because you're a female. But just like anything, as I stayed in there, got to be around some fascinating people, it ended up working its way out, and I kind of just stayed true and resilient and thick-skinned, and it worked out.
That's right. I love it. Thick skin, perseverance. It all works. Good formula. So great to catch up with you, Bonnie Jill Laflin. Houndsandheroes.com is where we can find out more about your wonderful nonprofit. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Bye.